This is the YOB ConvoCast, one-on-one conversations with your other brother's authors, community members, supporters, and friends. What's up, friends, and welcome to the YOB ConvoCast, conversations that continue forever and ever with people in our beloved community. And today's exciting because we get to meet someone new. I say we because I've met this person numerous times, both in person and digitally many times. But the first time on a YOB podcast production, I was so excited when he agreed to enter these hallowed gates. These non-hallowed gates, actually. His name is Daniel. What's up, Daniel?
Hey, Tom. How's it going?
Good to have you. It's going so well. Like I said, I love it when the audience out there, the yobbers and the lurkers and the non-yobbers alike, all of the people listening right now, get to meet someone new in our community. You've been around, gosh, how long have you been in these parts? A couple of years.
Think since 2020, like January. I might have listened to some podcasts before that, but
okay.
Joined officially. Like early 2020.
So
for sure.
Like a pre-COVID baby? Not quite
I think so.
A COVID baby?
I don't think quite a COVID baby. Yeah, I've been on listening to YOB since like late 2019 because a straight roommate suggested I listen to it when maybe I asked too much of him. But no, I'm in SoCal. I'm part of the SoCal crew, Go SoCal. And I've been living here for the last 4 years. I think this is year 4. And
wow.
Yeah, grew up in the Midwest. And I am a teacher here, and I am in San Diego area. You know, do you use the term proper? Have you heard that term? I've gotten in trouble the last couple of times because San Diego proper versus not proper. Have you heard of this?
Yeah. So you're like not within San Diego city limits.
I'm not within San Diego
like
proper. Yes.
Generally San Diego.
Yeah. Exactly.
If you were to fly in and out of an airport that's the most convenient to you, it would be San Diego.
Mm-hmm. That and Santa Ana, because Orange County airport is like smaller. Pro tip, look into Santa Ana if you're going to fly into SoCal.
Yeah, that's a good tip. I don't think I've flown out of that one. I've flown out of Ontario. That's a different one, right?
Yeah, I don't even know.
There's lots of other random little airports. And Long Beach. I've flown out of Long Beach as well. Oh. That's a great little SoCal airport. Hold on, but you glossed over a little detail there that I am curious to hear about. I'm sure our listeners are too. You said a straight roommate told you about our podcast?
Mm-hmm.
What?
Yeah.
Can you explain that?
Of course. When I left college, so 2019, I graduated with my teaching degree, and I moved to Southern California for a job. And I moved with one of my college friends. And so we ended up rooming together, getting a house and living together for the last 4 years. We were roommates. And early on, he was one of the only people out here that I shared my sexuality with. And either I pushed too many boundaries or I asked too many questions or whatever it was, but he decided to look into other resources and he found YOB. So most people, they go on that weird Googling train and discover it via the backdoor methods. But for me, it was a straight friend. It's like, hey, here's this. Stop asking me questions. No.
Wow. I wonder if there's anyone listening, anyone else in our community that was introduced to YOB via a straight friend. I can't imagine that is a long list, Daniel. That's pretty exclusive, I think.
There we go. Me being special. Love it.
You are not a 4, though, so that is not something that particularly appeals to you as a non-4. What is your Enneagram type? I know you're into that.
Yeah, I do have an Enneagram crisis like every year. I'm currently having an Enneagram crisis as to whether or not I'm an 8 because I consider myself a social 9, but I have a strong 8 wing. So I just feel like I'm more willing to have conflict than most of my 9 friends. And the weird part about the social 9, right? They have more energy, so you look less like a 9. So anyways, I consider myself a social 9 and I stick to that with a strong 8 wing. But who knows?
But maybe you're actually an 8.
Maybe a social 8.
Which would be great.
Because you don't have enough.
No 8s.
Yeah. But apparently
# make Daniel an 8.
No,
make Daniel an 8.
I don't want to lose all my friends.
That's right. 8s are very domineering types. They can maybe be a little they can make the sensitive boys in our community a little off-putting. It can be an off-putting dynamic. So yeah, I get that. But we're not here to talk about the Enneagram. You missed out on the Enneagram ConvoCast series last summer. You're a year too late. But maybe we'll revisit a ConvoCast series on Enneagram types again soon. It was received very well. Today, though, we're talking about. So here's something that happened because you and I, we recently, as of this recording, we recently engaged in a virtual event with our community called Flock because we're a bunch of sparrow boys.
It was flocking awesome.
It was fucking awesome. It really was. So many puns that you can use for that wonderful little word. And I was trying to remember what it even was. You and I were in a discussion group. So throughout the weekend, we kind of it was Group-a-palooza. We grouped people up throughout the whole weekend, mixing and matching with all different discussions and topics and questions. And I just remember you and I talking about, I think it was just you and me. Wasn't it just you and me in this group?
I think it was, I came early to a the offices, daily offices. And you and I were just chatting.
Daily offices.
I think it was before a daily office. Yeah.
So this was just a spontaneous conversation?
Possibly. I think so. Because the other thought would be the spiritual disciplines group. I don't think we talked about it there.
Okay. Well, yeah, anyway, we were talking about kind of like our idealized selves, right? You remember this conversation about how we have this vision maybe of our potential of what we could be. And I think that really is an interesting jumping off point for a conversation on like body image and discussing like our ideal selves out externally and perhaps somewhat internally as well. But yeah, I just thought it would be a really cool conversation with you when you were like down to kind of explore body image and this connection with our body. I think is really a fun one to explore, especially for a 9 being in the body triad.
What's that called? The body triad, and having no idea who we are, right? We're so confused on our so at least for the 9. The 8s I'm sure are more confident, which is why I'm still holding to the 9. No, but the song that comes to mind, like thinking about this idea of the ideal, it's Mulan, you know? When will my reflection show? I loved that movie growing up, and you know the angsty songs of her like wiping the makeup off and like looking at two faces. And I'm a Gemini, so you know, not that anyone cares about the zodiac signs, but I always loved seeing that like two faces that she saw in the mirror, and she wondered when that reflection was going to meet her like image. So I think we brought that up when we were chatting. I'm not sure.
Yeah, no, it's super fascinating. I thought you were about to sing "I'll Make a Man Out of You" for a moment, but maybe that's later.
Also iconic, but in my 4 Enneagram crisis, I was like, but I'm more moody, and so it's the sad songs that resonate more with me. So
that's a good one. No, I love that song too. Yeah. So I don't know, just share with me a little bit of your story, a little of your journey with body image, because I certainly got a story to share too, but I want to hear you first. You're the guest.
Sure.
I want to hear your story.
Yeah, I only read your book just this last year, and I was like, oh, there's some parallels here. Even the dog story. I have a dog named Zoe that died. And anyways, getting sidetracked.
Spoilers.
No, I grew up in a small Christian, a big Christian family, in the smaller town and in the Midwest. And I always felt really close knit with my siblings and with my family. But growing up, I definitely felt different. I think 2 years ago when we had Flock or virtual retreat, we had talked about like how young were you when you knew you were gay, and I think I even committed to saying like as early as 5 or 6, but maybe not the language of gay, but certainly felt like there was differences, and I think part of those differences showed up in a couple different ways. Like obviously, I think you've talked about it before, feeling separate or distinct from the other males or boys in your groups, and then and like feeling like you're lacking something or missing something. So there's definitely that social dynamic. But then I think for me, it also showed up like physically. So in my family, we love to like categorize and learn and to put things into boxes. And one of the boxes that we had access to, there was this wonderful book with a BMI chart. I don't know if you've heard of those. Yep.
Body mass
index, whatever it means. Yeah. Who knows what that means or how you figured out. But for my body, it always landed like even as early as 8 to 10 years old, which maybe you're not even supposed to do the BMI charts at that age. I was always overweight. So I felt like if there was like the social distance from peers, I also felt like the body distance from like my male peers and or maybe my siblings in that sense, because I was overweight and the rest were normal. It's great. They even use the word normal and overweight or obese. So, but yeah, that led me to kind of disliking my body. I don't remember if I mentioned it to you, but like even growing up, there'd be times like standing in the mirror and holding my body in different ways. Maybe it's like holding my waist or holding my belly or whatever it was. And I I know that Preston Sprinkle has talked about this before, like connections between body sort of distaste or dysmorphia and like maybe gender dysphoria. And for a while, I even wondered, looking at myself in the mirror, if this body was female, maybe it'd be okay. So I know for me, like growing up, there was that like internal dialogue of this isn't the way it's supposed to be. The ideal, maybe like maybe I'm overweight, or maybe my body isn't as masculine or muscular or athletic as everyone else. And I think in my mind, I was like, something needs to change. But I don't know. I think that's a good enough backstory. What's your connection with the ideal or with body image?
Yeah. We're kind of on opposite ends of the scale. Like, because I was always so skinny and was very self-conscious about that. And growing up in a Christian school, and I swear my class was like, because I noticed like all the other classes and all the other makeup of the like the demographics of the boys, like just assessing all the different grades. For whatever reason, my grade was like the uber athletic male grade, and I was like, how did I get here? Because like every boy plays football, every boy plays basketball, plays baseball. Those are the big three. But like, and then with that though, not only those three sports throughout the year, but then also like access to the weight room, because they always use the weight room throughout the year.
Yep.
So they got so big and muscular, and it was just such a contrast to me, who was a runner, like Mr. Cardio, and I'm like 100 pounds, like constantly. Like I just was so lean. Which again, pros and cons to both sides of the scale of like where one person is and where the other person is. But I just remember throughout all adolescence, just and I had one semester of weight training, like just one in ninth grade, I think it was. And it was simultaneously super daunting, but there was like this rewarding aspect of it too that I just was starting to figure out. Once I got acclimated, then the semester ended, and then I couldn't use it anymore, basically. And so for me, there was always just like this. That was definitely an external reason. There's plenty of internal reasons to feel like I'm not like all the other boys, emotionally, mentally, whatever. But certainly physically, when I just looked at the rest of my class, like it was me and like 3 or 4 other like lame kids who didn't play any sports or who ran. Like I give myself credit, I ran. But yeah, it was just like the comparison trap was so evident, and I just remember feeling so skinny, so invisible. I mean, it was like physically invisible, emotionally invisible. I just felt so separate from the other boys. And yeah, so it's like this weird disconnect with my own body. Cause like, if that's what a boy is, when I look around me and I don't see that in the mirror, and then I talk about in my book about my struggle with acne as well. I think that was like another aspect of body image that if I looked in the mirror, I looked from the chin down, and it was a hard thing to grow up that way.
I similar to you. Acne. I had acne on my forehead for the longest time, and so I would always wear my hair down to my eyebrows for as long as I could.
Oh, bangs!
Just to cover. So I had the Bieber swoosh for a while, but I was never going to switch that or cut my hair because it would show off my acne. But I think the way your experience and my experience, I was kind of pondering this after we talked. I think like the two different reactions to the not ideal body, because you said you kind of tried to get into the weight room and you kind of like learned how to make your body better or stronger or bigger, right? So you kind of acted and try to perfect it. I think I ended up doing the opposite, where when I saw the difference from me and my peers, I like kind of gave up, because I saw my overweightness and my body as like a limiter. So growing up, I played hockey, and I remember like even then feeling a little bit different, but I still, went to the locker rooms, got changed. We had practices, we played games. It was a normal part of life. But then when I had that sort of mental switch and realized maybe I was bigger than my peers, maybe I wasn't as athletic, just based off of body shape, then I stopped doing those things because I thought it was a limiter for me. I kind of just gave up on trying to make my body fit the ideal. So like, that idea of trying to perfect it, make it better, or just like give up on it. I feel like those are two patterns that I often see with like the whole ideal image or perfecting the body, or trying to meet something that it seems unattainable.
How have you handled that beyond our lovely formative schooling years? Because I know for me, like getting beyond high school and then beyond, even probably beyond college, like I joined various gyms, and sometimes I would be in seasons of, giving it a really solid effort and going consistently, and then I just wouldn't. There's constant jokes on the podcast about joining CrossFit, and I did CrossFit for a year or so, and now I'm currently in another gym, and I'm going pretty regularly and feeling really good about like doing something, because there's something gratifying, I guess, about like taking my body and getting stronger and moving towards some ideal. Like I have no aspirations of being like some gigantic muscle man person. Like that doesn't appeal to me at all. I just want to like look healthy. I just want to look healthy, look masculine, and feel good in my skin. And I just don't, I just want to do whatever is within reasonable bounds of that. Like I'm not going to go crazy with the workouts or with the diet plans or whatever, but I just want to be healthy and feel good in my skin. And I think I'm getting there. But I'm curious now, as an adult yourself, like how do you approach your body?
Yeah, I feel like the healthiest I ever was like my senior year in high school. Because during that senior year, I would say this was after a sort of coming to Christ moment, maybe. Like I grew up in a Christian home, but I tell people it was like Jesus themed, but not Jesus filled. So I feel like post junior year, I kind of had maybe a revelation of what it means to experience grace. And part of that was like a grace I experienced in my body, a grace of like, oh, you are, even yet while we were still sinners, Christ died for us. I think there's some sort of connection there. And I felt it not just for me as a person, but like for my sexuality, for my body and other things. And that summer was a summer I signed up to actually just, I took a PE credit on like throughout the summer. So I just kept a log, and what I ended up doing was just like walking 2 miles every day. And usually I watch Netflix while doing it, but 2 miles a day through a whole summer. I think I dropped like 20 pounds, and I also cut my hair that summer. Glow ups, right? That was my
transformation.
The summer I became pretty. I think that's a book right now, right? I think some of my students read it. So I think I've seen that somewhere. But then currently, I think we also talked about this at Flop, the spiritual disciplines of fasting. I think when I'm not actively pursuing taking care of my body and like, giving it's stewarding it well, I'll just use that word. Then usually I kind of flip-flop between this sort of flip-flop between not caring for it and then like gluttony, and sort of flip-flopping between I just like
sharing that.
I'll drive my body and exhaust it, and then I'll eat as much as I want, or I'll not eat any food, and then I'll gorge myself on as much food as I can fit in my body. It's not necessarily helpful or healthy, but I think there's some level of when I'm staying active, when I'm doing stuff, it's finding reasons to hang out with friends, playing. I play volleyball on Sundays, sometimes with friends. I'm always willing and able to help or go on a hike or help with moving, or, find things to use my body for, give it a purpose beyond just exercise, which I fully support those who exercise. I don't have the self initiative to just go to the gym, self-discipline. Not for me.
Well, I'm not one of those people, because I used to go to the gym like years ago, where I would just go to the gym and then like spy on the other people doing the machines and the workouts and try to like copy them later, so I don't look like an idiot, because nobody taught me. And that worked for a little while, but I found myself just exhausted with the constant need to figure out, what am I even doing here today? Like, am I doing cardio? Am I doing upper body? Am I doing lower body? Like that to me, like maybe some people are listening and like, Tom, it's not that big a deal. Just like, find 5 workouts and cycle through them or whatever. But for whatever reason, that was very mentally exhausting to me. And so that's where like CrossFit and this gym that I have right now, which is very CrossFit-y, it's a circuit workout gym. And so someone comes up with the workout for you, and there are other people there doing it. So there's kind of this communal aspect to it. which I enjoy. It's not just like a lone ranger going into the gym and trying to figure it out. Like there's a plan, you're in and out in 35 minutes and bada bing, bada boom. And it's so that to me, I thrive on that structure. And so, so I don't know, maybe people listening out there also resonate with that, because I struggle with that self-discipline too. Like I'm kind of right there with you as far as like, if I just have to come up with a workout plan or something, that's something that for whatever reason, I don't have the stamina to commit to.
I think it's the 8-wing in me that's just presumes that like 300 years ago, people didn't have workout plans. They just lived life and they used their body
they
for
worked in the
things.
field. They worked in the field, and they
I was even listening to a podcast today, and they were talking about like going to a spa where they did hot cold treatments, you know, and it's kind of like just testing the body between going in hot and then cold, like these extremes. And I'm like, you're just stressing the body as a spa treatment. Just go outside and work in the heat and then go inside the AC, you know. But that's the internal 8, I guess. You don't have to go to the gym and get exercise. You can just work normal life. Just work.
Yeah.
Just work hard.
You know, as we pivot this conversation down, you know, something that I forgot to do at the start of our conversation was flip the hourglass. You know, there's an hourglass behind me. You just have to imagine now that the sand is halfway out. So if you can imagine that we're about right here at this moment. I wanted to pivot a little bit because, you know, we've been talking about our bodies and talking about how we feel about our bodies. I'm curious about the relationship between your body and your sexuality, and maybe what that's looked like through the years. Whenever you've had a positive or a less than positive sense of body image, like has there been a correlation with how you also view your sexuality as well?
Yeah, I think that I mentioned part of it there in the beginning, this idea that when I was younger, for me, the sort of hatred or the dissonance I saw with my body and then the ideal I had created for masculinity, at least like for my male peers, there was a presumption, and I was talking with another friend about this, like even probably my desires played into this. There was a presumption that like a female body would both fit my difference from my male peers' bodies and also would fit like the difference in desires I seem to have. And we were talking, and I don't think that's the same as like someone who's truly transgender and experiencing like truly uncomfortable or body dysmorphia in terms of their gender or gender dysphoria. But I definitely saw that there was sort of parallels of self-hatred and that being influenced by my my sexuality and my body together, sort of like that those just internalized on I am bad. That the ways in which I disliked my body and or my sexuality was different than the ideal just became I am bad. And I think both of those led to me sort of disconnecting and pushing away from people, which maybe heightened the, like I think you said, like the feelings of separateness and or the feelings of not being like other people growing up or not belonging. But then growing up in college, after my sort of experience of what it means to experience grace, and to be known by God and loved by God, no matter what state we're in, I realized that my body and my desires could have good purpose. I was thinking about this earlier, this idea that even if our bodies don't reflect or don't look like the ideal, that there is a reality that maybe we are still part of the like ideal kingdom, because when Christ saves us, he makes us part of the body. And so even though our bodies aren't perfected, we are part of the perfect body, right? And so in that sense, my desires, where I was, who I was, became good and valuable and a necessary part of the body. And I think freshman year in college was when I heard that voice most clearly through Wesley Hill, and like spiritual friendship, the way he gave me a telos for my desires, my sexuality. And suddenly I could see the body's good, like the ways in which I wanted to connect with people, the ways in which my body gave me the abilities to sing, to play instruments, to move, to engage in a lot of different ways. Suddenly I saw that my attractions actually reinforced that. So even though they seemed unideal, the way I had perceived it, in the broader concept of the ideal body, Christ's body, it was like perfect for accomplishing that kingdom building, I guess. I don't know if that makes sense or if you followed that connection. So I'll let you respond.
That's a beautiful thought. The image of Christ's body, and we've all heard that metaphor of like the pink. We need the pinky finger, we need the appendix, and we need the heart, and we need the eyelashes. We need all these pieces of the
Mm-hmm.
body. And it's really been, yeah. I mean, honestly, since you mentioned my book, and then certainly the formation of this community, like I think in the last 10 years, 8 years, like recognizing that despite all of my flaws or seeming flaws and or ways that I don't cookie cutter fit into traditional masculinity, or certainly masculinity within Christianity sometimes, recognizing that I have definitely contributed, and people have gone out of their way to tell me that. This isn't me having a big head or anything. Like, it's just recognizing that God has used me as I've like come to grips with the fact that I feel worthless, or I feel like I have nothing to offer. And it's like in that nothingness, or in that less than idealness, like
Mm-hmm.
God is doing something in my life, and certainly in our lives, in this community's lives, and being able to connect so many people all around the world. Like, it's just been it's been a beautiful thing. And I hope anyone listening, if you like, you look at your physical body, or if you look at your talents or your personalities, and you feel like there's nothing there, or you feel
Mm-hmm.
like, what do I have? Like, I don't know, this probably sounds so cliche or corny or something, but you do have something. It's like,
Mm.
I just know it. I don't say that superfluously. Like, I say that with complete confidence that everyone listening, everyone out there, everyone created has a purpose and has something to offer. And for some of us, it's a journey. It's a journey to like recognize,
Mm.
all of those gifts that God has instilled within us. But I know it's like, man, I feel like you and I, for similar reasons, like we were dealt our hands, we were dealt our bodies, and dealt our social situations, or the people that were around us. And sometimes growing up, figuring out your body, that's a big first step to figuring
Mm-hmm.
out all the rest of you as well.
For sure.
And then I think going back to sexuality, I remember, like, it's so crazy to me now. Like, I have such a clear head now about who I am. I mean, I'm still learning who I am. I haven't figured it all out, but it's so crazy for me. I don't know if you feel this way too, but like looking back on middle school Tom, on that ninth grader Tom who was trying to figure out the gym for his one semester, like somebody who didn't like his body at all, like literally refused to look at it in the mirror. Um, is such a parallel to the sexuality piece, to where that
Mm.
was also something I refused to look at. I didn't
Yep.
even, I journaled my whole life. I journaled since I was 7 years old. I kept all these journals. I had like stacks and stacks of journals, and like not a word about sexuality, not a word about like, oh, like I have these
Yeah.
feelings toward men, even though I was thinking about boys all the time throughout middle school and high school. It's just so crazy to me that it's like such a parallel, that my desire to not look at my body or appreciate my body
Mm-hmm.
was exactly like not wanting to look at my sexuality. Like, does that sound familiar to you at all?
Oh, no, absolutely. I was even going to say, I was just talking with some other yobbers about this. Just the idea that the way in which we looked at our bodies originally, so that self-hatred, like not wanting to look in the mirror, not wanting to see it as good or beautiful, I think that feeds right into all the feelings of, when we first get those tingles of attraction, and or if someone looks at us with
Hold
those
on. I like how you moved your fingers when you said that. Tingles.
the tingles.
As he
Yeah,
wiggles
yeah,
his fingers.
yeah.
Yeah. The tingles of attraction.
And so often they come around people that see our bodies with those eyes of desire, right? That we could never see ourselves
Mm.
with. That definitely has fed into my sexuality in terms of when I feel the most connected. Is like the realization of like, oh, people see me as good and beautiful. Like people see my
Mm.
body as good and beautiful. And especially as I've been like meandering my way through side B theology and wondering like, how does sexuality and attraction fall into this like sphere of there can be goodness there or there can be grace there. I think there was some pope who wrote a paper on experiencing grace in the body. And I think like this idea that when people can see the beauty in our bodies and the beauty in us, there is some level of grace that we experience for ourselves because we had so often put our own bodies down, right? Or at least in your mind's situation, maybe that's not for everyone. But I know for me,
Was that John Paul the second
I think
theology of the
so.
body? Is
Yeah,
that was,
or
I've
maybe he had a
heard about
paper.
that for so long. Yeah, I've heard about that thing for so long. People have always recommended it, and I have yet to
It's
read
so
that,
good.
but
It's so good.
someday.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
How to like the experiencing grace in the body, and just such a good idea. Like, because I think conceptually we know about grace, but we've never known what it feels like for the body, you know? And weird place to be, that we're in a society that's so driven by bodily feelings and images and sensations, but we don't know what grace is for the body. And
Mm-hmm.
I know for me, part of it has been like, oh, someone sees me with desire, someone sees me with appreciation, whether that's intellectual or a romantic or physical or whatever else. Like, just that concept is, it's in dissonance with how I always viewed myself, and even realizing that that could be a way in which God looks at me, like, that is supremely graceful. It gives me a sense of grace. It gives me a sense of healing, even, so it feeds into my experience of sexuality for sure. And it wonders, makes me wonder how to steward that, because sin mars our self-perception pretty quickly. So
Yeah. Man, no, I resonate so strongly with just I mean, honestly, it was like through developed all of the relationships that formed the foundation for what your other brothers would be, and
hmm
people like wanting to be friends with me, male, like
yeah.
other men. Like I had female friends pretty easily growing up, but
Mm.
like having male friends like want to pursue friendship with me was so foreign. Like to be a 19, 20, 21, 22-year old and to have like men wanting to pursue me, like that was very strange because the format, the default was like, oh, he's just irrelevant. Like he's the smart kid and he gets all the good grades and I'm gonna cheat off of him or whatever. He's
Mm.
useful for that. But like other than that, like he's like essentially not worth connecting or talking to or getting to know. And that's still like it's crazy how, I'm 36 years old now and like that still feels like a lot of the default. I think the default's been eroded a lot over the years, certainly, but there is
Mm.
still just like that go-to sense, like, I'm the invisible guy. Like I'm smart. I know like, I know how to do things. I know how to think things through, but like I otherwise like I'm just basically invisible because of that. So it's been a journey of overcoming that, I would say, for sure.
I resonate with that feeling of disconnection. And I will say, as a 9, not as a 4, because one of my Enneagram
Not as a
crises
four.
was a belief I might be a 4. But that feeling of belonging, the feeling of knowingness, like those are all good and necessary things. And when you've never experienced it in your body, it's hard to believe that. You can know it. I think that, like, that disconnect, and I think that goes back to like the ideal image too. Like you can know an ideal, and if you don't meet that, there's such a feeling of isolation or being pulled apart. But for me, realizing that I'm part of the ideal. It's just a collective ideal. Like I'm a piece of that. And Christ brings me into that. I think that's been like the most
Mm.
satisfying, the most comforting, maybe. Yeah, all probably the most comforting.
That is a great thought because that was going to be like my last question to you to wrap up our conversation was like, so like if we're never in the ideal, then how do we survive? Because I'm working through a lot right now. Like I don't know if this is going to turn into a book or a
Mm,
blog series or what it's, but I've been thinking a lot about just like living in the tension of like not arriving yet,
hmm
and I don't that can certainly be from an eternal perspective of not being in heaven yet. Like there's
Sure.
certainly the feeling of we're certainly living in a fallen world. I feel it more and more every day.
hmm
But like even beyond like eternity's scope, like surely within my span, if I'm blessed to live 83 years, like why do I still feel nowhere near where I want to be? Like there's geographically and emotionally, relationally,
mm,
like there I just feel like all the boxes I want checked in my life, there's like nothing. I'm 36,
mm,
I've gone 36 years. I'm like almost halfway there if I live a normal
mm.
span, and I feel like I've checked no boxes. And I'm just curious with you, like maybe that's how you survive in this world, is you zoom out more to the ideal, to the collective ideal. I really like how you phrase that.
Mm.
But like I guess just focusing on your body ideal, or since that was kind of the big part of our conversation, but you could take that wherever you want. Like, is that really what it comes down to? Is just focusing on the collective versus the individual, or how do you wrestle with that tension of not living or not reaching that ideal in your individual life?
Mm. That's a good question. And I definitely feel like you could talk for hours with a therapist about that. But let's
Yeah.
see, both you and me, because I think I do feel that sometimes. Um, well, classic 9 would say I'm probably just repressing classic 9 patterns would say I'm probably just repressing the the negative emotions. But I do think there's something to be said for the experience of grace within community, and that sort of connection that realizes. Have you heard about this new movie, A Man Called Otto?
I have heard about that.
Okay.
Is it Tom
Tom
Hanks?
Hanks. Yeah.
Yeah.
I just finished watching it before I got on here, and it's, first off, I think he's an 8. So if you love watching 8s on screen, definitely worth checking out. But also his sort of redemption arc. I don't want to give too much away, but he realizes that he had gotten so stuck up on his own problems that he thought no one was thinking about him and what he was going through. He forgot that he had all these other people around him to take care of, which sounds like such an 8 moving to health, right?
Yeah.
But
moving to 2.
Yeah.
That's so good.
But I think there's some truth there. Like the body of Christ, to be a part of that, realizes that we no longer have to seek like taking care of ourselves for survival. Like it's no longer a survival game. Because I know I do that all the time, where I just get in my mindset of, when I was growing up, I kept to myself my realization of my sexuality. I thought I couldn't tell anyone. I thought I had to keep myself. I thought I had to figure it out, and that just kept spiraling into self-hatred and a disconnection, and a realization that I didn't think I was deserving of life or community or fellowship based off what I believed about sexuality. And so when I had that realization that Christ comes to us when we're least deserving, both for my sexuality and for my sinfulness, not just in my sexuality, but in my greed and my pride and my wrath and everything else. That was like the realization of, oh, this is grace. This is him approaching me is what allows me to step out of how I'm feeling, because it's not ideal. It's not perfect. But now I'm brought into a family, into a body that is ideal. And so even in my non-idealness, my non-perfected state, I am a part of caring for others and communicating grace to them. So maybe that's the negative aspect of my 9 mind that just tamps down my negative emotions. And maybe it's like the reality of grace that, okay, yes, I'm imperfect. I'm going to see that every day. He's making me more and more like him. But now I can live out this realization, like there's no distinction, no Jew, no Greek, no slave, no free. Like I am called to show grace to these people. And that is going to reinforce a feeling of connection. It's going to show them a sense of belonging and acceptance, but also that will be communicated back to me. I would think. I think I've experienced it enough to believe that that's true. So sure, maybe a looking out rather than a looking in is part of that experience. Definitely not always true for me, because I definitely go through periods of ups and downs, but showing grace to others and then realizing that I'm part of that community is certainly one way to help me overcome this feeling that I'm not ideal, because I've seen that I'm connected to a kingdom that is perfect, that is here and coming and being made each and every day, for sure.
Well, you're preaching a good word to me, at least, and all the many 4s listening to who are so inward focused. I feel you all listening right now, and I hope you all feel convicted like I feel convicted to reach out, look beyond your forlorn emotional whirlpool selves, and yeah, realize the bigger picture and the connections that we have in this body. I think that's so beautiful just to be reminded of, and I love YOB.
If I can touch on that,
this connection
for one thing, please. Tom, for you, because I hate to call it all the 4s. I have some 4 friends who are very close. Some in SoCal.
Call us out.
No, but this is what I have to tell my 4 friends all the time, especially when they're feeling down. I'm like, the reason that you feel so disconnected from love and from being known is because you have such a great sense of how we ought to be loved. And you're so good at showing that to other people. Like you guys have the greatest in touchness with how we ought to be loved by the Creator and by one another. So show that love to others, continue to be curious. That's exactly the grace that other people need, even if we don't know it. Just the fact that you need it and it causes you great turmoil all the time doesn't mean that you actually can't offer that grace to other people too. So, and you do it well, Tom. We feel it all the time. This community, all that you do for us, you definitely love us well. So,
aw, I love you guys. Yeah, I love everyone listening. Yob has been a big part of my growth, not to be all self-serving or anything, but God has used Yob to show me just a piece of just one sliver of beauty in my life when beauty is very hard to see in the mirror. So I just appreciate that affirmation. Thank you for that. Daniel, this has been so great. This conversation went so fast, and I hope you'll come back. I hope you'll share more of things that you are learning and gathering in this life. And I hope, we're on a mission to get every Daniel on this show.
Yes.
You're the third Daniel, I think, if I'm keeping track at home. Everyone's keeping track at home. I think he's the third Daniel to come on this show. So we're getting close. We're getting closer and closer to getting every Daniel.
Well, it's been an honor to be here. Thanks for having me and for chatting for the last little bit.
Absolutely. Looking forward to, just continuing to meet other people in our community. Thanks again for putting yourself out there. And now you can come back multiple times if you'd like. I would love that. All right, friends. Well, this has been another ConvoCast. Stay tuned for more conversations to come. So until we cast our next convo. See you later, friends. Bye, Daniel.
Bye.
Daniel.
Hello,
friend.
Hi, Tom. How's it going?
So let's see. First time. So Daniel, is that what you want to be known as on this episode? Or Dan? Or what's your preferred moniker?
No, Daniel is what I go
perfect.
by. Yeah.
I was thinking in my head, because we've had a Dan and we've had a Daniel. So if you wanted to complete the trifecta and go by Danny, you could go by Danny.
That happened once in college, where I said, it doesn't matter. You can call me Dan, Daniel, Danny. And then like one class, that group of people called me Danny. And I was like, okay.
That's
I had no
funny.
idea that was actually going to
Because
happen.
I went to college and someone asked me, so Tom or Thomas, but you never go by Tommy. And I was like, no, I've never been called Tommy. And then he persistently called me Tommy throughout the entire freshman year of that college. It was lovely.
That's great.
He's the only person that ever has done that.